Good morning. For those that don't know me, my name's Mark Cox. I'm the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I want to welcome everybody to today's dedication. I got to tell you, I'm super excited for today's event. It's been a long time coming. First, I want to give special thanks to our Chief Development Officer Meredith and her entire team, Danielle and Jess and Matt, for pretty much setting up today and really making it look beautiful when it comes to events like this. So, just to kind of make everybody aware, last April, I had an idea and I went to the board at our April meeting, and I made a recommendation to dedicate and name the building after John and Dorothy Talotta. And I got to tell you, it was unanimously passed instantly. I think it was one of the easiest things that I've ever presented. And what's amazing, coming from the fund development world, a lot of times when you do dedications like this, it's tied directly to a monetary gift and stuff like that. And that really wasn't the case, or the reasoning that I had presented to the board, why I thought this would be a great honor for John and his wife. But to be quite honest with you, after sitting with John and just working here for 15 years and getting to know the history of the organization, this has been 50 years coming. John joined the organization back in 1973, November of 1973, as a big brother, like many other people do, to try to really make a difference in a child's life, not realizing the impact that he would have on our organization over the next 50 years. Over those 50 years, John, he served as a big brother. He served on the board of directors for many stints. I was very fortunate that when I became CEO, shortly before I became CEO, he came back onto the board. His impact's been incredible, and him and his wife Dorothy financially have just been stoic supporters of our organization. They started their own scholarship fund, and it only started a few years ago, but we've already been able to award close to $100,000 to the littles in our program, and they continue to fund it year after year. At this time, I thought it would only be appropriate to bring up my predecessor and the former CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Bill Tiemann, who was the CEO of the organization before me for 34 years and probably spent a lot more time with John, but I thought it'd be appropriate for him to come up and talk a little about John and Dorothy's impact on our organization. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Tiemann.
It's nice to be back. I do have to read because my memory isn't that good anymore. When I arrived at Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Nassau County in 1979, it didn't take me long to figure out that we needed to find some new board members, additional board members, and one of our social workers at the time, Mike Auerbach, said, well, I'm overseeing a match, and why don't you see if John Talotta would be interested. At my first meeting with John, I was looking for a board member, and I was trying to interview and collect the information required from my standpoint as to what I needed in a board member. And to make a long story short, the first meeting, John said one thing and it closed the discussion. He said, all right, I know, I'm been a big brother, and I'm aware of what goes into it. He said, if in fact you run this agency as a business, I'm in. And that was the final decision, and it was a quick one. And I think we were able to meet that responsibility over time. In essence, I was interviewing him, he was interviewing me. And it didn't take me long to have and realize that I had a real mentor for me as a novice. And John and I think, made a very good team. Over 34 years, there's so many incidences and stories to be told. I could write a book. To summarize, and Mark referred to it a little bit, I don't think anything that we tried to achieve and succeeded in achieving it. There's not a time when I realized that John was behind every one of those accomplishments. I think people didn't realize over the years the kind of influence John had on me, on the agency, and the mission that is so important to everybody here. Just to summarize a little bit, we started off getting an office and a building in Levittown, a high school program that we created that went on internationally and replicated literally around the world. The merger, we merged Nassau and Suffolk County, Big Brothers Big Sisters, to make it BVBS Long Island. Of course, the creation of the donation center in Islandia was a major step in the right direction, and John was the founder with me at setting up the donation center, and the list goes on. Over the years, John and Dottie have built a significant scholarship, as Mark alluded to, and the list goes on as in terms of accomplishments. The agency, I think, continues to blossom after retirement of 10 years already. And it's blossomed with two strong and dedicated board members, and what I would call this indicate is a superior CEO at this point. I forget his name. Where is it? Oh, and of course, John and Dorothy are finally given an eternal tribute for their devotion to the mission of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And I'm just proud to have been part of this journey. I'm amazed and I'm proud. It's been a good journey for me. So, thank you all, and the scholarship fund is open for business. So if you have a talk with Mark, because between Mark and John, it goes on and on. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate you being able to speak on your past history with John and his impact with the organization. Unfortunately, our board chair, Liz Myers, was unable to be here today, but she did share with me that, some remarks that she'd asked I would share on her behalf. So this is her speaking. John and Dorothy, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person to celebrate with both of you. Your dedication to the agency, our scholarship fund, and the children in our program is unwavering, and your generosity knows no bounds. John, I have been fortunate enough to know you for 9 years, and I am proud to call you one of my mentors. Your knowledge and experiences have been invaluable to me as a board member, as a business executive, and as a human being. You saw something in me when I joined the board that most people didn't see and that I didn't see in myself, and you helped me grow into that person that I am today. You embody everything our program is about, and no one deserves this honor more than you and Dorothy. Sending you both much love and congratulations on this special day. And again, that was from our board chair, Liz Myers. All right, so, you know, for me, over the last 15 years, I've had the pleasure to interact with John and really see the passion he has for our mission and the mentoring impact he's had on so many staff at the organization, particularly myself. In my opinion, as well as the entire board, there's no one individual that's more representative or embodies what our organization is all about. And John has done that for the past 50 years. As we all know, none of this happens without the love and support of his wife, Dorothy. So I do want to give Dorothy a big round of applause and ask her to come forward. She's just as deserving as John. You know, we just happen to see John a little bit more than we get to see her. So lastly, before I bring John up here to say a few words, John, I personally want to thank you. You know, I remember the day you interviewed me. I got to tell you, I don't normally get intimidated. I was definitely intimidated when I was interviewed to come in as their Chief Development Officer at the organization. And over the last 15 years, particularly the last 10 as CEO, you've really been a friend. You've been a mentor. You've helped me grow individually and become the leader that I am today. So I want to personally thank you for that, John. So with that said, it's my pleasure to officially name the Big Brothers Big Sisters Nassau County office in the name of John and Dorothy Talotta. So we're going to do the ribbon cutting after John speaks. So at this time, I'd like to ask our honoree today, John Talotta, to come forward.
Celeste, I have my glasses, but I don't think I need them. I hope I don't. Thank you all for coming. Dorothy and I are truly honored. It's easy to say that because it's so very, very true. I'm fortunate to have met an awful lot of, and worked with an awful lot of great people over these years. The experiences have taught me personally and professionally as I grew while the agency was growing too. Fortunate to know staff, board members, my littles in the old days, other volunteers, and so many friends of the agency. Once this thing started, it caused me to reflect more than I ever had before, and it's been a hell of a journey, to put it mildly. Bill alluded to a couple of things, and I'm going to dot some I's and cross some T's for you, sir. Just a few. It's been 45 years since I met Bill. My initial match was in the Suffolk program. There was no Nassau program at that point in time. And after my second match terminated there, I applied to what was then the Nassau program. And my intake case manager was a gentleman that Bill mentioned, Mike Auerbach, who passed away much too early. He was the development officer as well as a case manager. I'm not sure what the titles were at that point in time. But he interviewed me, and I ended up being matched, and then that led to me being captured by Bill later for the board. He's right. We did have a conversation. We talked about, I had been to a board meeting or two as a witness, if you will, and I sensed immediately the challenges that Bill was facing and the frustrations that he was experiencing in dealing with a lot of very well-intentioned people, but it was a little bit like the Keystone Cops in some ways. So 45 years with him, As Mark said, 50 years this November, this November, since I was formally associated with the agency. And this fall, in September, Dorothy and I will celebrate our 55th wedding anniversary. So there's a lot of fives this year. Hard to believe. Bill said, many highlights, many stories and whatever. The agency struggled for many, many years financially. One of the saving graces was an event called the Bowl for Kids' Sake, which during the 80s, the agency was very much struggling. And there was a character who had helped the agency by procuring tickets for events from time to time, sporting events and whatever, who never wanted to be on stage, so to speak. He knows who I'm talking about. We ended up getting him on the board. And at these events, the Bowl for Kids' Sakes in particular, he became a ham and the MC for everything. It was unbelievable. The morphing of Mr. Paley to get from that person behind the scenes who didn't want anybody to know to the... But it's true. It's absolutely true. Those are some good days. And that event, those events for several years, saved the agency for all intents and purposes. So thank you to John Caprice, who was the owner of Sheridan Bowl, and Ann Falzone, who was his right hand and made his operation work, and to the New York Islanders, who supported us very strongly during that entire time frame. They bowled with us and helped raise funds and whatever. This building, the agency owns outright at this point in time, largely because Mr. Tiemann was a stalker. Back in the late 90s, there was an organization out on the West Coast in Seattle called TVI, Thrift Village Incorporated, a family-run operation that partnered with charities, principally in Canada, but some in the United States, to raise funds. Big Brothers Big Sisters was not on their radar. They were on Bill's. And he literally stalked them. He kidnapped me again, and we went coast to coast with them, basically. A couple of trips out to Seattle. The closer was in East Providence, Rhode Island, where he and I made a trip up there to witness the establishment of a store, what would become known as Savers on the island now. Savers is the survivor organization. The TVI was sold years ago, and we've had, 3 or 4 different management teams since then. Today, we have 4 stores on the island for Savers and a 5th one. I know what they say, but I'll believe it if they have it by June of 2024. But all the more, we're partners with them. They love us, we love them. The donation center continues to be a very successful business. And Bill created it, put the foundation in. Mark took over in July of 2013. And he has built it even further to the point where we are running an extremely successful small business. Mr. Paley is on that board also. What can I tell you? I said coast to coast. Bill and I traveled. We investigated a couple of operations before we got into the clothing business and whatever. But there was one trip that was a recreational trip that was a little more fun, for me anyway. We were down in the Florida Keys, Isla Mirada specifically. And it would have been a really great time, but Celeste put me to work. The Knicks were playing basketball, and we couldn't find a place where she could watch the game. I was elected to learn how to move the satellite dish so that they could pick up the broadcast from New York for the Knicks game. It absolutely happened. It absolutely happened. And I'm not going to sing Hooray for Hollywood like your husband and I would do from time to time after dinner. That's right. That's right. I went to a conference in Las Vegas, that was a conference of a large handful of agency executive directors or CEOs or whatever who had all started the site-based program known then as the high school program. That program, Bill started. He wrote a federal grant proposal in the early 80s during the Reagan administration when social programs were being cut. Sent it to Washington, got a call from a character named Leo Voitko, a real character, a career civil servant, liked his cigars, but his heart was in the right place despite the fact that he was working in that administration. And he invited Bill to come down to pitch the program. That was the first test of the run it like a business that we had. And because there was no money in the till. Bill did make the trip, the Eastern Shuttle down and back, cab ride to and from the airport to the offices. And he came back and we got the grant, he got the grant. And looking, 4 years he funded a 3-year grant, something like that. But one of the tie-ins for that extra year, he incorporated Bill's methodology into starting that program in a number of other locations around the country. National organization didn't want to have anything to do with this program. It was not kosher, so to speak. Several years later, they embraced it wholeheartedly and it became theirs, of course. But Leo used Bill to establish this program in many areas around the country, and I met several of the CEOs who were involved in it. A number of them were real characters. Las Vegas was Willie, what was her name? Willie? I can't Willie, that's right, Celeste remembers. Characters like you can't believe. In any case, it's now an international program. And it started here in Nassau County by that guy over there because we didn't have enough money or enough volunteers, and it was a program that expanded the reach to kids. Scholarship was mentioned. Again, Haley comes up. Lisa Vituli comes up too, because she was kidnapped by me in 1997 to architect the current scholarship program, basically. Thank you, Lisa. And she continues to be on the committee to this day. The first year we were able to do anything was 1998. The bank that we were with at that time helped fund it initially, and we scrambled to award 2 littles scholarships totaling $3,000. Okay, 1998. I don't have the specific numbers, but including what the scholarship committee did last month in identifying 15 or 16 award winners and the amount that they're giving out. Assuming that all comes to pass, where we will be later this year is more than 170 children will have received more than $800,000 in awards. That's the agency's scholarship, which started off as a Jeff Grant scholarship, and Dorothy's and mine, which is a Johnny Come Lately, but will go for quite some time. And I'm so proud that our name is on the building, of course. It was initially enough to be on that scholarship. This is the icing on the cake. So, thank you very much.